Hello, everybody. It's a little bit weird to speak without an audience. Let me just start with our paper Learning with Storytelling, a fairy tale teaching case for business education. Perhaps I may introduce ourselves briefly at the beginning. My name is Simon. I'm working for a publishing and IT company in Germany, and since many years I'm also a volunteer judge for the business plan competition of Northern Bavaria, and I'm a consultant and coach for startups and organize awards each year. Annette Craven is a professor of management emeritus from the University of Incarnate Word and an international faculty member of the École de Pont Executive DBA program, where I graduated. In addition to her teaching activities, she has consulted and coached organizations and individuals for more than 20 years. The paper we have written is a critical reflection of my teaching journey using a fairy tale teaching case in university classes. I teach at the University of Applied Sciences, Würzburg, in the postgraduate master's program Brand and Media Management. And in the last 2 years, a short case was used in class to encourage students to think outside of the box. Teaching cases are becoming increasingly popular at business schools. Usually, real company examples are used to act out circumstances, and students learn to analyze business situations, apply tools, prioritize tasks, and develop a strategy. There is, of course, lots of theoretical background which shows that entrepreneurship plays a central role in the economic development of societies. Studies showed that 57% of German students can imagine starting their own business instead of taking a corporate job. All over the world, there are efforts to emulate the American Silicon Valley with innovation clusters. However, most startups failed within the first 24 months. So for us, the question arose how to make a teaching case and its experimental learning even easier and more intuitive to use. And I got the idea to pack my teaching case into a fairy tale framework. There already exist very popular teaching cases using legends like Robin Hood. It's about team management, perhaps you know it. However, a fairy tale as a basement for a teaching case might be a bit uncommon. Nevertheless, this opens great possibilities. First, the case includes personal experience out of more than one startup business. It summarizes challenges several companies faced within the first months, and instead of simply changing names, their situations were embedded in one of the most well-known stories of the world, Snow White. It is an appropriate way to combine and at the same time keep everything confidential. Second, a fairy tale framework might make it more interesting and memorable for students. The goal of this teaching case study is also to introduce students to working with teaching cases, so it's most applicable for undergraduate students in an introductory entrepreneurship course. The introduction of protagonists is much easier. Think of many team members, different names, backgrounds. Everybody already knows protagonists and the implications that a prince is rich and powerful, or that Sleepy is afraid of oversleeping a development in the market. Another reason famous company names cannot be used for an early stage startup, and well-known former startup company names can be soon outdated. Finally, in fairy tales, everything is possible, even a magic wand, for example. But not everything is fiction. I used problems and challenges that come from real events based on my experience as a volunteer judge at the business plan competition, as well as my work in a German publishing company with various location-based services. Here is the story. Once upon a time, the young entrepreneur Snow White finds herself in the typical startup company situation. Her business, The Mirror, a location-based service built on a smartphone application, is facing many challenges. It is growing rapidly, but not generating revenue yet. 6 months after its successful start, the company must deal with technology problems, potential new revenue models, and strategic decisions concerning rapid scaling versus cost-generating growth, big competitors, and the struggle of internationalization. Moreover, the founder must assert herself as a female leader in a situation of increasing rivalry among the Draft's founding team and a change of the original startup culture. Snow White needs an action plan for the upcoming challenges and negotiations with the prince investor, and she also considers exit scenarios. Talking about learning outcomes, students were asked to analyze the business situation using tools like the business model Canvas, critically discuss the challenges entrepreneurs are facing starting a new business, prioritize tasks to prepare for the meeting with an investor, develop a general strategy for the future of The Mirror, evaluate whether rapid scaling can support this strategy, and to write a business plan. These were the 3 main discussion questions. Critically discuss the challenges entrepreneurs are facing building up a new business. If you were a fairy godparent encountering Snow White in the forest, what advice would you give? If you had a magic wand to change one aspect, what would you change to better prepare for the meeting with the prince investor? And finally, think about the general strategy. Where do you see The Mirror in 3 years? But the case offers several themes for discussion. For example, about female leadership. What are the special challenges for women as founders and executives in startups? We were talking about business culture in startup companies. What are the challenges during a strong growth of a business concerning organization, hierarchy, and processes? How should transition to an established company ideally proceed? Team diversity and relationships in a growing organization were another topic. What sets the typical corporate culture of a startup apart from an established company? So here's my experience with students in class. Of course, the fairy tale setup initially caused some amusement among the students, but in the end it only served to motivate them to deal with the topic, especially when it came to the names of the protagonists, the company, and their environment in Cloudland. It confirmed that students quickly found their way into the case. It also turned out to be advantages that no real company names were given, as the students drew their own parallels to other large and small location-based services. They were able to work out differences and were not influenced and stuck in their strategy from the outset. The case recommends the use of some tools for exercises with students. And with the help of 3 examples, I would like to show how creatively the students handled the fairy tale setup. A SWOT analysis may assist in identifying the most critical decision points of a teaching case and its discussion questions. Students were able to identify strengths like the rapid growth and the many partners of the startup, weaknesses as the missing revenue model, opportunities regarding new markets in neighboring countries, and threats like competitors and security risks. You can see that on the right side. But interestingly, some students showed as much creativity to bring in a fictional additional protagonist, a poison dwarf. The left side of the picture. It served as a visualization and starting point for all possible and conceivable attacks that could threaten the startup. In this way, a devil's advocate was created by the students to accomplish the task, deliberately assuming the position of an adversary. The business model canvas is another straightforward blueprint for developing business models. It helps to coordinate operations by visualizing various properties of a startup. And students did that. You can see that on the left side here. Students used thinking about the structure of the company to assign the different protagonists to the departments in an organizational chart. This is here on the right side. And because students were largely given freedom to make further assumptions, offered additional turning points in the case study led to more protagonists. Characters such as Puss in Boots, Rumpelstiltskin were brought into play by the students as possible financiers. To add better operational management to Snow White's leadership, a team proposed hiring Mulan, the female warrior from a Chinese fairy tale. And finally, the Musketeers were also proposed as collaborative partners by students to address challenges with competitors. Maybe this sounds like a wild growth of fairy tale characters at first. In fact, the problems of the startup were discussed in detail and solutions were thought. But instead of neutrally describing an urgently needed additional staff position for the slightly overburdened boss, the students jumped on the metaphor bandwagon. And with a persona name like Mulan, it is immediately clear to everyone what qualities the job candidate should bring to optimally complement the founding team. They all put a lot of effort into designing flipchart presentations. And some really creative solutions came out, especially when applying another tool with the students. Business plans are often used to persuade private or public investors. Consequently, it is not only the written work, but also the presentation that matters. In addition to the analytical approach of breaking down a plan for the next 3 years into individual steps and describing them in detail, you can see that here on the bottom. The students also worked with elaborately illustrated graphics, used a magic wand here on the right side, and practiced presenting to potential investors with amusing allusions or in rhyme form to get the greatest possible attention and to vividly present the development steps. So, a fairy tale about startup challenges has successfully demonstrated its applicability to students in several cohorts. The original teaching case is available at the Case Center in case you want to try it with students as well. And I'm proud that a short version of the teaching case was also awarded by the IMA Educational Case Journal in a case writing competition. I believe there is an opportunity to ask questions in writing during the conference, which of course I'm happy to answer. And Annette and I also submitted another paper, so don't miss my second presentation. Have fun at the conference. Bye bye.